Hi there. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Coach Marcia. I'm a running coach and trainer, and I wanted to sit down today and talk for a few minutes about something near and dear to my heart, and that is the Chicago Marathon. Right now, while I am taping this, it's just about time to start training for the 2023 Chicago Marathon, and I just wanted to share a few course tips to help make your training and your race day more maybe easier, more efficient, whatever. Just gonna share some course tips. My first, I ran, Chicago was my first marathon back in 2007. If you don't know, it was the notoriously hot and canceled version. It was, I don't know, 80, 93 degrees. The humidity was off the charts, and some of the water stations didn't have water anymore. I was very fortunate in that I carried my own water, and a lot of the residents had my back and came out with their garden hoses, things like that. And I did manage to finish that one. And that was supposed to be my one and done marathon. And because it was so hot, I was so aggravated. I did finish, but I was so aggravated that I knew I had a better marathon in me. And that's really what motivated me to train for a second marathon. And then I kind of slipped into that rabbit hole of 14 marathons later. I've run all around the world. So Chicago was my first marathon, and I ran it again in 2010. Sadly, both the times I ran it, the weather was really warm. It was also quite warm in 2010, not quite as warm as it was in 2007. But my first tip is the weather can be very unpredictable. Here in Chicago, that's my hometown race. It can be really cold. It can be very, very hot. So you really never know what you're gonna get on race day. So you have to be mentally prepared and physically prepared for whatever the day gives you. So my second tip is it's a very large race, you know that. The starting area is very large. So I recommend you definitely look at the race program and look at the map and just kind of see where your corral is, see where the potties are, see where gear check is, because if you get there and you don't have your bearings, you can be really far from gear check, and it can cost you a lot of time walking around looking for that sort of thing. So just prepare ahead of time, that you kind of know where things are, you know what time you need to be in your corral, especially those beginning corrals, because they close. And when they're closed, if you're not in it, you're just not gonna be in that corral. You're gonna have to move back. So preparation is key to knowing where you're going, when to be there, get there early, potty lines, that sort of thing. So preparation is super key for all those reasons. Once you get started, the Chicago Marathon race course has a lot of turns where you're running in the city to start. Well, you're running in the city the whole time, but run your tangents. They put a blue line down the center to help you. If you want to stay on that center line, that's great, but just run your tangents, because if you don't, if you find yourself weaving and switching sides and all that, you're just going to run a lot further than you need to, and that's not a good idea because you're doing 26.2. You don't need to run more than that on race day. So definitely be mindful of your tangents. It's also good for water stations if you're using them. If you're not going to use them, I mean, that played into my favor because I carried my own, and I ended up being much better hydrated than those in 2007 who counted on the water stations that didn't have any water. So I carried my own, and I had to refill the bottle periodically, whatever. It worked out great. But if you are using water stations, choose a side and just stick with it. Historically, the right side is more popular, so maybe you want to be on the left side. So just be consistent, and if you're going to be on the left, stay on the left. And also don't stop at your first opportunity for water, just because it kind of has kind of a log jam there, kind of a bottleneck. So just go a little bit past where everybody pulls over and get your water or Gatorade or whatever further on down the line. The water stations are very, very long, so it is a very big race. So just stay consistent with that, and also tell your spectators what side you're going to be on so they can plan accordingly as well with their spectating report. Also, if it is hot, just be mindful. You can be more strategic about running on the shady side, so you're in the shade of the buildings while you have it, or later in the race there are some trees around 17, you can be under the trees. You can definitely help yourself if the weather is not perfect. If it's a little bit hot, you can tell I've got like post-traumatic heat syndrome, whatever, because it was so hot both the times I ran it. So I definitely sought out some shade. Another thing to be ready for is what we call Mount Roosevelt. It's really not a big hill, but it's at mile 26. So it feels just enormous because you're so ready to finish. It's just a mental challenge at this point. If you have your head around knowing you're going to have to go up and down and just do it strong, and then you make your turn and you just run it into the finish, just get your head mentally prepared for Mount Roosevelt, because you're just more than ready to be done at that point. So any kind of a incline is a big deal and you're going to want to walk. But if you know it and you can mentally prepare for Mount Roosevelt, it's all good. Just know that the minute you get up and down that, you just make that left and you are basically done. It's just a straightaway in. And my last tip is the reunion area, because Chicago is such a huge race. They give you a reunion area with like alphabetized numbers. I reckon it's so hard to even get to that area, and a lot of time cell phone service doesn't work, so then you can't find your people. It's just really hard to fight your way to find that letter. I have 2 tips for you. Either just go to A or go to the first one, just because you don't have to hunt and keep going and fighting that crowd, or else just don't do the reunion area at all and just go to like Buckingham Fountain. And it's easier just to meet someone around there. It's a great landmark. It's huge. It's hard to miss. Where the reunion area is just absolutely packed with people, and it's hard to get to. I would just choose, Buckingham Fountain or a different landmark and meet your people there. So that's really all I have. It's a flat, fast race. There are bridges that are kind of funky. They put kind of a carpet on some of the bridges, but there's a grooved surface there that may be a little bit interesting. But flat and fast, like I said, run your tangents. Notice Sears Tower just for fun, because you're going to go far north and you're going to see how far north you've come up Sears Tower. I just like to use it as a benchmark to notice where you are, because you get far north of it, like around mile 5, and then you get far south and west of it as well, which is really interesting as you come running. And then you're going to start getting closer to it. You're going to approach it, and then you're going to get to your finish area. So just something mental to do to notice where you are on the course. And enjoy the crowds. The Chicago crowd is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I ran both my races in very hot years, and they really have your back. It's among the best crowds, if not the best crowd you're going to find in marathoning. Chicagoans are wonderful. Like I said, they have your back. They are so enthusiastic. They're just such a wonderful support system. So just enjoy and have a great time training for this. Like I said, I'll say it again, flat and fast. That doesn't mean it's easy, because no marathon is ever easy. But as long as you bring your mental game, bring your motivation, and be as prepared as possible, you're going to do great. I hope this helped you, and I hope you have a great race.